They were two young girls living in a world of imagination.
I'm going to the fourth world. It's an absolute paradise of music, art, and pure enjoyment.
What they had was friendship.
Your mother is rather a miserable woman.
What they needed was freedom.
Do you like your mother?
No.
What they shared was secret.
Your daughter's been behaving in a rather disturbed manner.
What's she done?
I think I'm going crazy.
I'm sure it's perfectly innocent.
The crime that shocked the nation.
People die every day.
Only the best people fight against all obstacles in pursuit of happiness.
Paul thought it up.
Aren't you clever?
We're not going to be separated.
She's uncontrollable.
Based on a true story.
It's all frightfully romantic.
Heavenly creatures.
Based on a true story.
It is.
Conan, you're muted.
I was just mocking the guy. I was saying, in a rule you would not believe.
Yeah, the accent.
Announcer guy voice. Yeah, exactly.
But
On
it's
the
also
other
the
side of
accents
the
in this
world.
entire film are funny.
Exactly.
You'll notice because of the time, because of the time period of the film, the accents are very all the adults speak very British because that's what they were taught in New Zealand. We didn't do it in Oz, but they did it in New Zealand.
Oh yeah,
that sounds right.
Yeah,
I like the Kiwi accent though. That that
you can get it
have.
from Melanie Linsky. You can still hear hers.
A little bit.
You can still hear hers, but all the grown-ups speak very posh British type, which is how they had to. Even the TV, the guy, the hosts on TV had to speak in British English. They weren't allowed to use the accents.
Yeah, well, even on BBC television, it wasn't until very recently where they weren't allowed to speak the Queen's English. So
yeah,
maybe you might have one or two Scottish guys. It was revolutionary whenever Christopher Eccleston played Doctor Who with that London accent.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, accents, am I right? They're wild.
All right. Well, welcome to Movie Night Extravaganza, episode 75. It is Oscar weekend. Sunday is the Oscars. I guess we're not going to talk about that, but
yeah, you just want to talk about something that you've done all the prep work for and no one else has. So you look really informed and awesome, and everyone else looks like an adult. I've seen about a third of them, but
I've seen less than you have. But I did my binge watch.
Well,
I did
who's the adult now, motherfucker? Yeah. Anyway,
I did licorice. I did Licorice Pizza. I watched Belfast, which I fucking hated. I watched.
Did you hate Belfast? I haven't watched Belfast yet. But
Power of the Dog, right?
Power of the Dog. Yeah, I couldn't.
That's gonna be what wins, by the way. I'm making the call now. If it's not Power of the Dog, I'll be surprised. I don't think it's the best movie, but I think
it'll win a ton of awards because it was
I think it'll win Best Picture and I think it'll win Best Director.
It's got all the most nominations behind Dune.
Come on, got shut out.
And then Dune.
And Barb and Star.
Barb and Star got shut out as well.
I don't really think Licorice Pizza is that great either.
I enjoyed Licorice Pizza. I did not enjoy Belfast. Belfast fucking sucked. Belfast is terrible.
I'm still gonna watch. I've still got it on my list to watch. One of my coworkers who loves English and Britpop and stuff as much as me, he watched it and told me it was fantastic. So I think
it's Irish. It's not. I mean, it's not British. It's
no, but
the British will take credit for it.
Australia, we just assume all of England, Ireland, Scotland is because we're all from there, basically.
See, I'm just someone that
I guess we're just doing the show we said we weren't going to do. At this point.
Sorry about that.
We're vamping. We're waiting for Erica to get here.
That's fine. I'll do it. Like I said, come on, got robbed. I haven't seen Belfast. I'm sure I don't like it very much. I also thought Drive My Car was good but overrated.
I don't think it's an Oscar movie either, but I loved Come On. But yeah,
I thought Come On is absolutely an Oscar movie, just not this year. I mean, this year it's like I don't know.
I feel like it's just going to be Power of the Dog and Dune.
I think Dune will win for cinematography and sound and nothing else.
Yeah,
and I think
they're going to give Hans Zimmer his due.
Oh, if Hans Zimmer gets
Hans Zimmer would definitely, yeah.
I'm gonna be super pissed if that's the award that it wins.
I bet you, no, he will. He'll win. I reckon 100%.
So I should say, by the way, I guess you guys are all wondering, who we are. I'm Forrest. No last name given. We have J. Andrew, Let's Kill Mother World, illustrator, artist, hit his mom over the head with a rock and ran away.
Deezy of the Fourth World.
I'm surprised you didn't turn yourself to J. Andrew Fourth World. That seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, that's the one.
You're right.
That's the laugh of someone that didn't think
thinking too hard.
Yeah, that's the laugh of someone that didn't think of that.
Fine, then you'll have it for me.
Conan Neutron, not of a band called Friend Zone. Conan Neutron of Protonic Reversal and Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. I was really I was nervous, introducing Joseph Pride because he already didn't get to do his green screen, and I really wanted it to go well. So I was trying to rush through it, and then I had a whole paragraph of intro for him. So I'm sorry for that.
It's probably hilarious to watch because if you watch it, you kind of see me to speak, kind of like, huh? And then you see Andy kind of do the same thing, and then we're both like, "Well, did we say something, or do we just kind of let that slide?" And I was like, "It's like, no, I'm gonna say something."
No one's ever let anything slide that I've messed up on this
show. Yeah, well. Anyway, I walked over my plugs. Yeah, Protonic Reversal, Secret Friend Zone. Yep, all that shit.
Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. And of course, this movie has at least 100 secret friends, right? They're in their fourth world. I'd say that, yeah.
It's basically as many people that are in the lineup of my band. All of which will eventually be featured guests on this show, apparently. But yeah, I mean, this is a lively movie about the power of imagination, amongst other things, including lesbianism and murder. But like, it's ultimately the thing that drew into me is what an accurate is probably the best way to put it. One of the more innovative ways to show when people live inside minds, live inside their imagination, live inside the minds of worlds that they've created, to actually show that in such a way is really, really cool. And I'm the one that kind of like it. Oh,
have the same imagination. You know what I mean? Which is fascinating.
Like Link's mind. Yeah.
So
that's why I pushed for this. No, that's it. That's why I really wanted to cover this one because for me, like this is like one of my favorite movies, and one of the reasons why is because it's because of that. I think it's an interesting story. I think it's incredibly well directed, incredibly well acted by both Melanie Lynskey and Kate Winslet. But ultimately, this is. I mean, it goes wrong, right? It goes bad, but this is probably one of the best movies I've seen to depict the power of imagination. Hey, everybody, it's Icky.
Yeah, it's that and SpongeBob doing the rainbow. Imagination, and then those are the two best.
And this is also the debut feature films for both actresses.
Yeah. And I have a clip to after I introduce you, Renee Rune, who does movie reviews at the Night Shift. Smells Like Girls podcast. Or Smells Like Girl, singular podcast. And Rune.
We're going to railroad you.
Now I'm extra cautious to make sure everybody gets the.
That's good.
Yeah.
Smells Like Friend Zone.
I have. I guess I have to pull it up again, but I have a clip where they talk about how they literally drove around to high schools, accidentally drove to a boys' high school, and Peter Jackson. I almost said Peter Coffin. No, but Peter Jackson's Peter Jackson's producer, he and his producer drove around to all these high schools and found Melanie Lynskey in one of them. Hold on, just vamp for a second while I pull up the clip. But
I was gonna say it's one of the films where the actress is actually the same age as her character. She is actually 16.
Yeah, and Kate Winslet wasn't that much older. I think she
was 19. Yeah. Kate was 19, but Melanie was actually 16, which is the age of the person she's playing.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, and you wouldn't know it because I mean she's such a titan, and I'm glad she's finally getting her due, with Yellow Jackets, and I loved her in Castle Rock, but I mean I feel like
same, I did as well, yeah.
But I think we talked about this. I think like 3 people watch those shows, and like it's everybody but
Everyone's
Forrest.
like angry because so they're cancelled. And
Well, and also like we said, like Lizzie, I'm sure we've talked about this. Lizzie Kaplan in season 2, like Kathy Bates was like, "You're the only
Amazing.
misery now," or something like along those lines.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, holy crap, because I love Lizzie Kaplan too. I think she's a
I like
badass.
Lizzie. Yeah, Lizzie Kaplan.
Yeah.
She does,
I like lesbians. I mean,
no, I like all the comedy roles she's done though.
Party Down is
know,
like one of my favorites. That's an all-timer. Like she's amazing in that. I mean, everyone is. Party Down is freaking amazing.
Well, I can't wait until the new season.
That is one of like only 2 or 3 things I'm like, hell yes, make more of that, please.
I like the guy who did that Tom Hanks movie where he said, "I'm the captain now," who was in in Castle Rock, who I don't know his name because he's not very famous, but he's fantastic.
Oh, I have to look
You
it
know what I'm
up.
talking about? I'm the captain now.
Andy World, everybody.
By the way, Kate Winslet, Christina talked about Titanic. Kate Winslet kind of overnight, right, didn't believe that Titanic was going to be as big as it was. I mean, it was the most expensive movie filmed at the time, so maybe she's kind of dumb for not understanding how big that movie was going to be. But she said that she, I was watching her like retrospective thing for this episode, and she said that like overnight she went from like going to stores and like walking in being fine and no one really recognizing her. Like she had been in like a couple movies. I think she was in what is it? Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibilities.
Sense and Sensibility is the one that came after, and there's like another one after that's another kind of period. It's a play of Hamlet. It's Kenneth Branagh actually. I think Kenneth Branagh's like Hamlet thing, which is like super overwrought, not very interesting, but notable since you just
sounds like his career.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably
it's cool looking. It's cool looking, but not a great film.
So she said she went.
She also
she
played
was
the
able
princess
to,
in A Kid in King Arthur's Court, which is an Andy reference.
Yeah, she did. Yeah. And then
By the way,
that was her 3rd movie. She was able to like walk into stores. Everything was still kind of fine. Like people knew who she was, but she wasn't like famous. And she said like overnight it went to like there would be just people lined up outside of her house, like photographers, reporters. Like it was insane. And she's like, I couldn't live like a person anymore after that. And like, I don't know. She kind of just when people were like, oh, you're gonna be huge, like. From here on out, it's going to be different. She's like, my life isn't going to be different. And she's like, oh no, fuck, it was different within 24 hours. Like
completely different. But Heavenly Creatures and more, for the mainstream audience, it's sensibility. But like, Heavenly Creatures actually was one of the movies that kind of brought her to a lot of people's attention because Peter Jackson was well known for. Things like Dead Alive and like Bad Taste, and I think Meet the Feebles even before this.
All that stuff.
Like, which. I love all that stuff, but let's just go and charitably say it's not mainstream entertainment, right? So,
no, 100% no.
This
was before, like, kind of what would you call it? Like, he did, it was like, when you look at Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles and stuff, it's a bit like, and then he came out with this, and of course, he also work on Picnic and Hang Rock as well, which I thought was one of his earlier ones. It's got the same, very similar vibe.
Okay, I mean, it definitely does. I love Picnic and Hanging Rock, but I just want to point out.
So that was Peter Weir, but he uses a lot of similar,
right?
That ethereal stuff that goes on in this film. You can see it's very like post Picnic at Hanging Rock, which makes sense since they're both over our side of the globe, and there's not many. Right. At the time, there wasn't many directors and stuff doing stuff or being kind to each other because we're really bad at flower cutting.
I just want to point out for the audio listeners, what you're missing out on right now is one of our feline roommates, pinch catting tough, and looking actually like a very good attaché for like
looks
cool stuff
on it. Really well. With the evil eyes.
Yeah, because with Icky you just see like eyes. Right.
Yeah.
And so this is unplanned behavior, but I'm here for it. So I just wanted to say if you only listen to the audio podcast, these are the small little things that you do not get if you do not subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube stream or
the Twitch.
That also is good too, which you should also do anyway. Thank you. Anyway, to see my cat behind.
Or if you
that's the only reason to do it.
if you send me your address, I'll send a sparrow over to your house, you know, like or a carrier pigeon, and they will have like pictures of the show, like, you know what I mean, just like
still photos.
Yeah. So I want to. This is a couple minutes. I want to play this. This is about the casting process and.
The one thing I was just gonna say is this movie was like in its way at the time like a bomb in the room for Peter Jackson. That ultimately, like, it was an indie darling. It wasn't like it was a mainstream success, but one can say, and I think Peter Jackson has said that without Heavenly Creatures, he would never have gotten the nod for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and I have some really funny. So I pulled it off the New Zealand Film Commission website. I have some really funny early interviews from this show, or from this movie, from this show. He was on Movie Night Extravaganza. No, I have some early.
He just made to take a week off
when he got his Oscar nomination for this, right? And it was award season. He was getting awards like crazy. And I have some really funny footage for later on, maybe for the after party, when he's like, "Oh, I'm never gonna change. I'm never gonna do a huge movie. I like what I'm doing." And it's like, you know, in retrospect, it's really funny because it's like, you know, he ends up doing Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies, like these huge movies. But of course, he doesn't really have to change. I think he's terrified that like mainstream success will make him change, you know, shooting in New Zealand and working with, you know, the way that he wants to, having full creative control. I don't think, you know, Lord of the Rings really changed that for him. They shot like the entire thing in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like
he
they had
made
to come to
sure
him.
that it was so New Zealand. Like,
Yeah.
even a lot of the crew were all New Zealand.
And I have to wonder if that's because he spent a bunch of time doing press and going, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to change. And then, you know what I mean? Like he had to show like, oh, well, I'm not fully changed. But this is the pressy where he talks about.
I'm going to be like, I'm going to change completely. I'm going to be a completely different person. Thanks.
Yeah, I would be like, I'm out of here. I'm not, you know what? I'm going to be global. No more New Zealand press for me.
Who plays Juliet was an English actress who has never done a feature film before, but has had, you know, training and drama school and stage work and some TV work. Melanie Linsky, on the other hand, was a young New Zealand girl who we didn't cast till the last minute. I'd been looking for Pauline for months, and we'd auditioned about 600 young New Zealand actors, or non-actors too, just anybody that was interested. And I'd had a short list of 2 people that were both about 20, and I felt one of the important things of casting the 2 girls was to get their ages close to the real Pauline and Juliet, which was 15 and 16. And because I never believe if you see movies where you have a 25-year-old wearing a school uniform, I mean, I just don't, you know, it doesn't work for me. And you see it all the time. So we were looking for 15-year-olds in New Zealand, and I had 2 actors that were about 20 or 21, and they were both good actors, but I couldn't make up my mind. And we got to the stage that it was about 4 weeks before we were going to start shooting the movie, and I was being pressured to make a decision on who was going to be Pauline. And Fran could see the dilemma I was in, and Fran said, "Well, this is crazy. You know, we've spent all this time researching this, all this time writing the script, and we haven't found the right Pauline." And I said, "No, it's a tragedy. It's a complete tragedy." And she said, "Well, we can't let this happen." And Fran actually got into a car and started to drive through New Zealand with a photograph of Pauline Parker. And she'd go into schools. She'd stop at schools in each little town that she came to. Some of these really small towns, she'd go to the principal's office and she'd say, "Look, this is what Pauline Parker looks like. Do you have anybody in your school that looks like this?" And that is interested in acting. I remember one of the schools you said that you went to, the principal said, "Well, we could give you 15-year-olds, but they're all boys." Because she actually stopped in a boys' school and was waving the picture around. But eventually she telephoned me from a place called New Plymouth, a town called New Plymouth. And I was in Christchurch, a city hundreds of miles away. And this was like 3 weeks now before we were going to start shooting the movie. And she says, "Look, I think I found this girl in New Plymouth Girls High School. Her name's Melanie Linsky. She's never acted before, but she looks really good. And I think she's very intelligent, and she can probably teach you how to act." And so we flew Melanie down to Christchurch, gave her a couple of auditions, and eventually we cast her 2 weeks before the film was going to start shooting. And so Melanie, going back to what I was talking about before, Melanie had no training as an actor. She didn't know anything about acting. And we had a coach, her mother in the movie, Sarah Pierce, the woman that gets murdered. She's a very good actor, very experienced. And so Sarah trained Melanie all the way through the shoot. Sarah was working with Melanie, like the mother and daughter in the film were working together on the performance. But Melanie found it very difficult to do the intense scenes, the murder scene and the anger and hatred, because Melanie's a very sweet girl. And when you're making a movie, you have to see things in people's eyes. You have to see emotion inside the eyes, because on a cinema screen, an eyeball is about this big, and it's so obvious what you're thinking. And we had to get Melanie worked up into a murderous state. She had to actually have murder kind of radiating out of her eyes at times in the film, and she found that very, very difficult because she wasn't a professional actor. She couldn't turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off like professionals are trained to do. She had to actually work herself up into the state and hold it there for maybe hours and hours during the day. So that was very difficult. Well, I mean, in some of the intense sequences, especially between her and her mother, what would happen is that Sarah, who was playing her mother, would be all ready. The cameras would be there, the lights would be there. And Sarah and Melanie would just go outside the set, and then you just hear them screaming at each other. They would, Sarah would start screaming at Mel, saying, "You bitch, you horrible, horrible daughter, I hate you, I hate you." And Melanie would start screaming back, and then they'd come back into the set, and Melanie would be so worked up, she'd be really angry. And since we sit down, and I say, "Great, roll the camera," and we'd roll the camera, and she'd be in this kind of really worked up state. I mean, she was very brave to do all that. It's very hard for her, but she knew that was what was going to make her performance good. She knew why she was doing it, and she was prepared to do it for the film. So.
Yeah, so I wanted to play the whole. You're muted again, Conan. I wanted to play the whole clip because I feel like that's. It's
I
kind
was
of
talking to the cat who decided to
Oh.
make a swift exit right as the camera turned back on. So yeah, there you go.
I found it fascinating to look at someone who had just because this is like not an easy picture, as they say. Not an easy film, I don't think, to have acted in, right? Like this isn't a film that requires an incredible amount of range. It's all over the place. Renee, you're muted. Everyone's muted for whatever.
I was just like, they actually on some of the posters they write moider, like Moider, because no one can say murder like in New Zealand accent.
That's fantastic.
So they're like, yes, it was like two girls and a murder.
Well, Kate Winslet says it like that in it too, and she's not. She's
Yeah,
British
exactly.
in it. But
Yeah.
So
It's
I found it fascinating because this movie doesn't just require like a normal performance. This movie requires emotional highs, emotional lows, like things to be all over the place. Molly Linsky is fucking amazing in it, and it's crazy that it's her first role ever in anything, because even Kate Winslet had acted in a bunch of TV shows and stuff like in the background, and had a family that was involved in acting. So I don't know. So I found that like incredibly interesting that they would go out in the other room and they would start screaming at each other, and she would get worked up, and you can see it. Like once you know that, you can see it in the movie when she's giving like her like beady-eyed expression.
Beady eyes,
it's like zoomed in, and there's just so much required for this role. I mean,
I think it helped that she was a teenager, because you're already emotional.
Yeah,
and all of that stuff, and then
you have quicker access to those kinds of things. Yeah, exactly.
And then you add that kind of to what the behavior that's happening. And I have heard that everyone says that she's incredibly sweet and very, very nice. And very quiet type girl. So like, but she, in this film, she's a little kind of devilish.
Yeah, she's like a demon.
She's
more of a demon. She's more of a demon than Kate Winslet's character.
Oh, 100%.
Like,
even in the, like we were talking about it, because we rewatched it last night. My housemate's from the same town as the real Pauline.
Oh, no kidding. Wow. Okay.
Well, not the real Pauline. Go back the other way. Melanie Linsky. Sorry. Lives in the same town as where Melanie Linsky. So not the other way, you know what I mean? And so we were talking about it, and he was saying how she has a really hard time. She doesn't return to New Zealand very often. She gets picked on, like everybody drags her through the mud. Like we have a huge problem with tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand and Australia. But yeah, she gets so much hate when she comes home. But
why for putting this on screen, or for
like you know,
for,
you're
like,
better,
doing
you think
well.
you're better than
Yeah.
us now. You're like
Yeah,
better
Oh.
than us now, you know,
She
because
thinks she's
she
the
never
full
had.
Kiwi.
Yeah, exactly. And like you moved away and stuff, and like you know, but she's actually supposed to be one of the sweetest, like loveliest people, and she never had an real aspiration to be an actress, so she's kind of thrown in, and then it rolls
You know,
on.
I mean, and that clip kind of shows it. They plucked her right out of her high school. The interesting thing is they got finished shooting this. She had to go back to high school, finish up her exams after the fact, and then kind of graduate. And it's like, Jesus Christ, how do you do that? You know what I mean? Like, this movie got Oscar nominated. Like, it's not like it's a movie that kind of just disappeared and it was only shown throughout New Zealand. Like, this is
Well, it's kind of like people in New Zealand talked about it, but she just got forgotten, which was quite common for Australian and New Zealand actors at the time. You know,
I didn't even know she was from New Zealand because I've seen her in a lot of stuff, and she always has like a really good American accent, a really good Midwestern accent.
Yeah, because she doesn't even. Yeah, she hasn't been here for so long. Like, so yeah, I think that was a big part of it.
She was in Don't Look Up, and I totally forgot about that until yesterday.
Yeah,
no, I recognize immediately, but this is also one of my favorite movies of all time, and you know, this.
Well, I recognized her. I just didn't. I hadn't seen this movie, so I didn't put it together. Like, oh yeah, that was like so because I watched Don't Look Up when it first came out.
Yeah, I know. So I had a very profound experience watching it, so I kind of like tracked both their careers, which I didn't really need to after Titanic. Everything was Kate Winslet, but like with Melanie Lynskey, anytime Melanie Lynskey was in something, I was like, oh, Melanie Lynskey's in that. I'll check that out. And it's always she did a lot of character work and all the stuff she's in is like pretty good. Like she's always really good in it, like whatever it is. But I was kind of glad when I saw Don't Look Up, I'm like, that's Melanie Lynskey. And Lindsay's like, who? I'm like, it's the chick from Heavenly Creatures and whatever. I mean, I was already excited to see Castle Rock, which we are just going to apparently keep invoking on this show over and over again. But when I heard she was going to be in it, I was like, hell yeah. I'm more in than I already was. You know, great.
There's a film called But I'm a Cheerleader that she's in, which is fucking sensational.
But for whatever reason, like nothing, she would continue to like do great work. But like it just didn't connect with people on that larger level, and that's why I'm so excited for her success with stuff like Yellow Jackets and things along those lines.
I mean, I really liked The Frighteners, which was the film that she did straight after this.
That was my next sentence. I was going to say like Frighteners is
by Peter Jackson
as well.
So he obviously helped her by casting her in it. But that was her next film after this was another Peter Jackson. And
how could he not? She's such a great talent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how could he not? I mean, Jesus, to be like that good at like, you know, doing the acting at that young.
The very first time you've ever done it and being able to draw those emotions. Like,
against Kate, well, not against, but like with Kate Winslet too,
someone who's been professionally trained and
also a badass and like to hold your own and like fantastic. I mean, like, she's a powerhouse, man, and I'm just really glad to see. I mean, and she's also 6 months older than me.
There you go.
So, like when I saw this movie, I was literally like the age of the characters.
Yeah.
This movie came out the year I was born.
I believe you.
Oh, I love these tidbits.
So it's interesting also with the Don't Look Up thing because I mean, you know, I think she's pretty, but you know, like Leonardo DiCaprio,
they play her down.
Yeah,
like, they play that down big.
And also Leonardo DiCaprio is like, you know, one of the most. It's stupid that he plays a fucking scientist. Like, of course he's not a fucking scientist.
No way.
You know what I mean? Like,
I didn't even. I'm gonna break everyone in the world's hearts who likes this film, but I fucking hate Titanic. I've never watched anything so boring in my life. I cannot stand it.
I'm not a Titanic fan.
There was a review of Titanic that I saw whenever the movie came out. It was like right around the time the Oscars aired. And he goes, last night the Oscars was on. A week before the Oscars, my wife dragged me to see Titanic, and it was a terrible movie, but it was worth it because in the end, water comes crashing in and drowns everybody. After 3 hours of the Oscar, the water did not burst through the doors and drown everybody. So
they fucked him over. They let him, you know, Kate Winslet let him drown. He could have fit on that door. There's no way he couldn't have fit on that door.
Yeah, what a bitch. I always say when I'm saying, fucking bitch, I love you so much. Now, bye. Like all that foreplay, all there, and then you just fucking left him for dead.
Fine, just walk over the end of my joke.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's really good at it tonight. I've never seen it, and I never will. I'm not interested in seeing it. I'm going to attempt to go to my grave without seeing the movie Titanic. So
I wanted to get hit by an iceberg after watching Titanic.
was that your Letterboxd one-liner?
It should be.
That'd be really good. That would probably get a lot of likes. I'm gonna go ahead and say
this is the Kate Winslet getting cast one. Because I grabbed both of them, and in both cases it's an interesting story. Because both of them obviously it's their first time getting cast in a feature film. I don't know how many. If anyone wants to look this up while this is playing, I don't know how many shows that Kate Winslet had been in. She'd been in a few shows though, as bit parts,
like BBC stuff, right? Like,
she's been in about I think 5 or 6 like TV miniseries type things.
Yeah, and of course, every actor's dream is to be cast in a feature film. So,
like Kid in King Arthur's Court. Yes.
You've done little bits and pieces of TV, but nothing too notable. A little bit of Casualty and a little bit of this, that, and the other. How did you then find yourself on the other side of the world making a film for the young Peter Jackson?
Well, I can tell you a great deal about this because I I remember it very, very, very clearly because it was an audition for Heavenly Creatures and I just finished my GCSEs. And things moved really suddenly quite quickly. I was sent this script for a film audition and my dad's in the room and he'll probably remember this. I remember that we had to drive to pick up the script because I had to go for the audition the next day and it might get lost in the post. And I remember saying to Dad, oh my God, Dad, it's an audition for a film. Wow. Oh my God. Do you think like I might get it? And he just looked at me and he said, yeah, you will. And I remember thinking that's, because he was trying to tell me about the attitude I needed to have, because Dad's an actor as well. And so I remember thinking, God, that's it, isn't it? I've got to absolutely believe that I'm going to get this part, because so much of it is believing that you will and willing things into existence. And I do remember thinking, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'm just somehow going to give them no option but to give me this part. And of course, a part of that is remaining incredibly calm. And I remember trying really hard not to appear too, like, I want this part, trying not to appear too desperate. And then I met Peter and his wonderful partner, Fran Walsh, who co-wrote Heavenly Creatures. And I just thought they were so lovely. I auditioned and then they called me back again about 2 or 3 weeks later. And then I was called back again. It was just terrifying. And then they sort of made me wait for about 2 more months. And then I finally got this phone call telling me that I'd got the part. And I was working at the time in the Delicatessen in Reading as a part-time job where I think every member of my family has worked at some point. And the telephone rang and I don't know what it was, but there was something about the way the telephone rang that day that I went, it's for me. And I knew that it was. I was like, oh my God. And I stopped. I was literally mid-making sandwich. I'm like, and sure enough, the lovely guy, Chris, who used to own the deli, Kate, yes, phone for you. Okay, sorry, I'm just sorry. And just left this sandwich, ran to the phone. And it was my child agent at the time who said, you clever girl. And I left the sandwich and I left work and I went home on the bus and told everybody that I'd got this part. I don't think any of us could really believe it. Because I was absolutely happily going to be in episodes of Casualty and maybe a bit of theatre if I was lucky. I mean, I never ever thought outside of that. Okay. I really didn't.
Yeah, she did actually one episode of Casualty, one episode of Anglo-Saxon Attitudes, a Russell T. Davies TV series called Dark Season, which looks like a Doctor Who knockoff, and a thing called
low-budget Doctor Who knockoff, and I choose my words carefully when I say that.
Yeah.
I also I watched that when I was putting these clips together, and I was imagining being the guy waiting for that sandwich. So like, you know what I mean? Like, you're waiting for her to finish the sandwich at the deli. You're like, hell yeah. And then all of a sudden she answers the phone and takes off running. You're like, hey, is someone gonna finish the sandwich?
But then he probably tells this story.
Right, but exactly. But then he gets...
she was making my sandwich when she got given her first role. So he probably says that story all the time.
He's just drunk as fuck at the bar. He's like, and then I didn't even get my sandwich.
Which, hey, Nice story if you can,
I mean, sandwiches are pretty shit in England anyway, so.
True.
All food is kind of shit in England.
Well, yes, that's true. Minus the roast. They do one of the best roasts ever with those Yorkshire puddings. Amazing with gravy. Anything with clotted cream, amazing. But yeah, in general, they have no cuisine. I don't care what they say.
And you can get Vegemite there.
Ugh. But yeah, their sandwiches are mad.
The only appropriate response is someone invoking the word Vegemite.
I love that word. I mean,
Vegemita vitamin. You know what I mean? It's a similar.
Oh yeah. Is that I Love Lucy? What's that from?
Yeah, that's from I Love Lucy.
It's
when she gets drunk on the.
That's right.
Multi-level marketing scam that
It totally is. You're right. Yeah. Wow.
It's Herbalife, but the early version of it.
We might have to do that presumably terrible Being the Ricardos movie just so we can talk about I Love Lucy episodes for like 2 hours and then and this movie's not that good. Thanks.
Who was it that wrote somebody?
I assume it's not good, by the way, just based on the fact that Aaron Sorkin wrote it, and modern Aaron Sorkin is I don't know.
Aaron Sorkin in general.
Maybe it's great. I'm sure it's not.
Somebody we've talked to recently, I feel like, wrote reviews. Oh, it was what's his name that roasted me to fucking death?
John Barber.
John Barber did film reviews for. See, I've blanked it out of my mind. I'm traumatized.
Is he a PTSD from it?
So John Barber did film reviewing for a while. He was talking to us about it, and actually, Lucille Ball wrote because he was working for the LA Times, was like, "Oh no, that's my favorite writer at the LA Times."
That's right. Yeah. Which not bad.
I don't know if he told us that or if I read that when I was doing research for this, but one or the other. I think it's on his website too.
He mentioned one of the many times he wrested control away from your own show from you. He told that story.
I fared better than Reagan, I guess. I don't know. He had his gotcha. Just I enjoyed that story though. I don't know.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
You get angry that we kept trying to talk about the movie. That was hilarious.
He's like, why this movie? Why not why not any of Frank Sinatra's other movies? Why not The Manchurian Candidate? And I was like, this is the second show that we did. This is the second episode.
But anyway, whatever. Winslet. Heavenly Creatures is awesome though, and that's a great story.
Bro. Kate Winslet.
I mean,
and let's be. She's always been low key and chill too, though. I think, personality wise, she's never been a huge star, and the whole taking in and being absorbed by the whole fame thing. She's always been a really kind of chill, kind of keeps her own private life type actress. Definitely not a Leonardo.
She's talented too. She actually is a really great actress. I mean, look at something like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, right? I mean, her and I'm saying it, Jim Carrey both. That's an astoundingly acted film. I mean, it's astoundingly directed. Everything about it's top.
Yeah, I haven't watched that since it came out, and during the pandemic at one point I watched it. I think I was pretty high and I watched it, and
great.
And
I was getting better.
You know what I mean? I was blown away by it again because I remember
it's a mind fuck of a movie in a good way.
I need somebody to spotless mind me
away
from that John Barber
interview. It's going to bum you out.
Yeah, I mean it's an awesome bummer, right? That should be a genre movie.
But it's a bummer. You're gonna get bummed out. You're gonna love it, but you're gonna be bummed. Yeah, it's just the way. There's heaps of films like that are incredible but a mega bummer. Yep. Or not so incredible, but still bummers. When anyone ever brings up that, I can't think of that bloody Blue Valentine. What a depressing, fucking boring bummer of a movie. And it comes up under romance. I'm like, it's the opposite of romance. It's it just all falls apart and it's shit and why bother? So I'm like, what the fuck? I really hate Netflix, the people who write the fucking things, because I want to do that as a job because they're always wrong. It's you'll see a film and you'll be like, this is amazing. And then you go, what the fuck? Why have they got that in comedy? That's one of the most depressing, fucking horrible things. And they've got it in comedy. And you're like, dude.
Also,
I don't
Eternal
know who.
Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I know that's not the movie you're talking about. Eternal Sunshine of the
Sorry.
Spotless Mind. I guess Xanax didn't exist in that universe.
Ah.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yeah.
listeners and viewers of the show who work at Netflix, Renee Ruin is motivated and a self-starter and will do the job of the thing that she just described.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. And I'll do it right.
You're understanding. I'm saying it, and weirder things have happened. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So going back to Heavenly Creatures.
Oh yeah, that movie. No, why are we talking about Heavenly Creatures? Let's talk about Eternal Sunshine. I'm putting John Barber.
It just turns into a whole different episode.
If the phone started ringing, it would definitely be John Barber. Hey,
Conan pulls off a mask and it's just
it's me.
I'm
your nemesis.
I got the water bucket. Let's go get Dan Rather.
Get in, losers. We're waterboarding Dan Rather.
Yeah, this dude, Renee, the dude from Real People, also wanted to waterboard Dan Rather, which was an incredible clip. Anyway, Forrest, please continue. Yes.
No, so I definitely enjoyed this film. I do think that what you're saying in the beginning about it being kind of the most accurate depiction of imagination, like it's fucking killer that way.
It's I arguably, and I'm gonna say this again, it's one of the reasons why he was in. People thought of him to do Lord of the Rings because he did such an incredible job of taking these fantastical elements and presenting them in ways that didn't look goofy, for lack of a better term. So you have to remember that around that time, like, a Waterworld, right? Do you remember Waterworld? I'm not talking about the theme park. I'm talking about.
I saw that.
Yes, I'd rather not remember it, but yes, I remember it.
PTSD may have blocked that as well, but yeah, I mean, like there was this.
It's something that you can't forget. And that's not a good thing.
Dennis Hopper in that ping pong ball.
But there was this certain idea that no matter how talented the director, nobody could pull off Lord of the Rings, right? But it was his work in Heavenly Creatures, like bringing the fourth world to life, and even like with all of the figures and the characters, but being like clay representation, but having like articulated faces and like personalities, like immediately which one is like the murderous son, right? Like it's explicitly clear. Like it's like, oh, it's this guy. He's watch out for this one, and like because of that and because of the way he treated it with the budget he had, which was not crazy huge.
No.
Like that put him as like, well, look what this guy can do with this. What if we gave him like a truckload of money? What do you think that would look like?
Yeah, the CG.
And I mean, New Zealand's the perfect landscape for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
it's got endless land. And it's going to be infinitely cheaper, and it was, to film there.
And and they have a film commission, and it's kind of fascinating. They're
doing Oz as well. So like, when we do films, and I think Britain does too. It's like everyone really gets in and like donates massive amounts of money. Like it's a big deal for us to do a big film.
They're like, hopefully one day they'll ask. Or no, I was thinking about England. And I was gonna say, hopefully they'll ask for our cuisine, and we can fucking slap them down. Australia slaps down the Queen.
Yeah, I'd love that
on film cuisine.
Okay, I've already said, and I'll say it a million times to anyone who asks. They do the most disgusting. They don't do brunch. Brunch is a massive thing in Australia, and fuck me, England in the gurgler. You guys can do brunch. I've witnessed it many times, but Australia does it better than anyone, especially my town. And going to England and only being able to find like 2 places that do brunch, half correct, was pretty pathetic.
They're sitting there boiling meat, and you're like, sir, you don't boil meat for brunch. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, and just everything looks like big slops that you would like put on a prison food, like on a silver thing, and just dump it at them. Here's some gross sausages with some beans. Like, enjoy.
We use gelatin to get it all grouped together.
Yeah.
Like
at least
the waffles are like stuck in gelatin.
Thanks for tuning in this episode of Ain't Talking About Brunch.
Sorry. This is such a risk at any time you have me on.
I want to shout out Clive Marison, the actor that played Dr. Hume in this, because I think during during his the funniest part of the movie. I fucking died laughing when this happened. When they're in the fourth world and they're like imagining all their things, and then they're like and Dr. Hume too, and then he comes out in the Joker with the Joker costume, not not that Joker,
Jester.
but the Jester. So he comes out, then he's like or whatever, and I don't know, I fucking lost my shit laughing at that.
I really loved. I'm gonna say, I mean, all the characters are played really well in this film, but I really like Melanie Linsky's family are just spot on. Like me and my husband were laughing hysterically at like particularly the father. Like the scene where she's listening to the record and he comes out with the fish. That's something that my dad would. That's exactly something my dad would have done. And the way he talks to the kids and everything is just so Aussie/New Zealand together. We're very similar in some of those like aneurysms, but that behavior was like, oh my god, that's just like my relatives.
Yeah.
Like
For those of you who don't know, New Zealand is basically Canada to Australia's America.
Yeah. Except we do actually, despite popular opinion, we do actually really do like each other. But people try to pretend we hate each other.
There's
actually that's Tasmania, which is actually within Australia. So technically, we hate a part of ourselves, not Kiwis.
How uniquely Australian?
Yeah,
which is why it's funny that young Einstein was from Tasmania.
Yes, young Einstein.
He was a Tasmanian.
That was a beautiful piece of work.
Tasmanian Devil.
Yeah.
Classic Tasmanian actor.
I prefer
I want to discuss.
I'm sorry for Yahoo Serious.
We're here to discuss Heavenly Creatures.
Literally, everyone went to like pounce on the Tasmanian Devil material at the same time.
Oh yeah,
and nobody was heard.
What's happening?
I was just gonna say that I prefer the Tasmanian Devil's dramatic material, but that's what I was gonna say. Thank
you. But yeah, the dad characters were amazing, and I actually really, even though he was a minor character in ways, I'm like, aside from the girls, there was other things happening that I feel were just as important. Like the father, like Juliet's father, like there was such sadness with him. And the way his wife and like the way, there was, this, and even like, we were talking last night, there's some behaviors in the film that are just so abnormal. And it's even if you look at the real case, they never actually addressed it. So like Pauline clearly has some form of like bipolar depression or like something going on. It's clear, like the way she snaps all the time and, that kind of thing. I can say it. I'll drop some if you want.
Just wait.
Don't make
that's an after party.
Oh yeah. That's the Patreon episode is where that's gonna be going.
Where I can just drop them left, right, and center. So you have that character. Yeah, you have that character, and there is this extreme sadness and kind of a patheticness, and you feel bad for the guy, and then the mother but the reaction Juliet has when they're sitting there and in the backyard, and she finds out that her dad's going overseas for a month, and the mum's going. Her reaction is just so like even that is completely abnormal, like behavior.
Well, she also, I mean, I think there's a class dynamic here, right? Where
well, she's a spoiled brat. You have she is a spoiled brat.
But I mean, she's spoiled because her parents are worldly, and she's kind of been all over the world.
Yeah,
and
but she knows what she wants. But she was abandoned that one time when she had tuberculosis, which has clearly given her this like thing about not being able to have be away from them. You know what I mean? Like attachment. Excuse me.
Yes.
I'm not to laugh at whatever at that.
Just continue talking, Renee. I'm trying to ignore it.
But also, it's funnier. But the there's like those little side parts, and even the dynamic between the mother, like Pauline and Pauline's mother, is like, I don't know what you guys is obviously how you grow up, but that is a very common dynamic that I grew up around here, and so did my housemate, my New Zealand housemates. Like that stern mom who's just like at you all the time, and then the fun dad who's like, hey, like kind of thing. But
she
also,
still wants the dad to like drop dead, which is kind of fascinating because
she finds him infuriating for being like not serious. But and then the mom, and then the one point I will say is nobody should have that many boarders in a house with young girls. What the fuck?
That was kind of like, as an adult watching this, I'm like,
And apparently, like my New Zealand housemate said that it was incredibly common, like to have like 4 or 5, whatever, which is like insane.
And you have to assume that New Zealand, because they're all kind of within the British Empire still. I mean, Australia too in this time period, right? Like more so under the thumb of Britain as the British Empire kind of than anything really is now, because now they're kind of a weakened and desolate country. But in that sense, like Australia is obviously getting more attention all the time than New Zealand is. So you have to think that nobody really gives a fuck what happens in New Zealand, and the poverty is probably a lot worse. They do kind of also live in
the small towns, definitely. I don't think even in Australia we experience that border culture to that level. Like even in England, you might have 1 to 2 borders or whatever, but you would never have a house with like 5 to 6, 7. Like we didn't have like boarding houses, like I guess in America where they were solely for that. Like, but even sometimes my dad will refer to my housemates as, well, how's your border? And I'm like, they're not a border. Like, because that's what he remembers from when he was young, was when there was no such thing as share houses and stuff. If you had someone there that wasn't meant to be there, it was a border. So yeah, it's like there was a big culture of that.
They seem to almost be like a hostel. Like they have like 6 kids.
Yeah, and there'd usually be like one lady or man who.
I know I'd be hostile if I have that many kids in my house. Let me tell you.
There's obviously all the inferring that was lesbian stuff going on the whole way through. And even when she's in, there was. But both they tried to, that both women claim that they are not lesbians and weren't lesbians, the real women.
And for the after party, I have a clip of the actual Anne. Her name now is Anne Perry.
Anne Berry, So she's actually. It came out for the people watching. It came out that Juliet became the famous crime author in Britain called Anne Berry.
Yeah.
Well, clearly they both have the creativity for it. So
and Pauline, for giggles, is she also lives in. They both live in Britain, and Pauline lives in a little village in Kent where she teaches horse riding.
I was kind of fascinated by the fact that they both only really got 5 years in the end for
all they got was 5 years, and which is interesting because we were really, our system was rough, but in penalties, but New Zealand's a little less rough, but still for murder I think it was purely because we didn't have our rules, like because they were under 18. Like there's a couple of other little murder type things that happen in New Zealand where it's very similar. They didn't serve much or hardly any time because they were under 18, because we didn't have like a proper system.
Yeah. I want to,
by the way, Conan or whoever.
I think that this would be, because we're going to try to do this in an hour and a half, and then we're going to try to the after party is going to probably be just as long as the normal episode. I think this would probably be a good time to jump to the letterbox one-liners.
Absolutely. All right, so thank you very much, Forrest. So of course, Letterboxd is a social media site about film, at with and to film lovers to talk to at with into each other. Well, that's an incredible sentence I just said. That people get to have their say, not just the Siskel's and Eberts of the world. No lords, no masters, no problems. Everyone gets to opine about movies they love, movies that maybe they don't love, movies they have interesting observations on, of which, for this particular show, we, and I'm using the royal we in this situation, like the Windsors, curate the best one-liner reviews, the culmination of the art form of the online review that are funny, poignant, interesting, just plain baffling, and also, most importantly, here for us to react to. So here are the Letterboxd one-liners for Heavenly Creatures. Youth culture before rock and roll was horrible. Mario Lanza?
I like the way the dad says it. Mario Lanza. Like he says it with like a elongated.
That's real talk, though. I mean, like, that was edgy stuff. And it was like, wow, rock
I was
and roll
like,
really
yeah,
did
even I
change
was like, who the fuck is Mario Lanza? I was like,
The world's greatest tenor.
You paid me. What?
That's Matt Cornell with that one, aka, well, I shouldn't out him. Extreme Elvis, but whatever. It's fine. We all know. Treat yourself, Mom. Single tear rolls down my cheek. Dave Parker. That is a crazy scene.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you know what's going to happen. I mean, it's crazy even when you think you know. Yeah.
Where she's acting really bizarre. And I was like, how is her mum not picking up on this?
Yeah, like, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting nuts? Like, more nuts than normal. My nuts.
I mean, you have to assume that she's seeing this, her daughter acting this nuts for like a good amount of time. Like, more than we see. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. But she's like pushing her, like, go for a walk, go over there. Like, it's weird. Be like, what are you doing, kid?
You call it killing a homophobe. I call it an essay on historical reparation. That's T with that one. Yeah. No, I have no notes. That's good. Yeah. If I was 14 years old and Kate Winslet paid attention to me, I would also kill anyone who stood in our way.
Yeah.
Again, Rustine Hunderdust with the hard facts there.
I thought Andy was going to drop his line that he wanted to say, but
no.
If there ever was a time,
no, that's for the post game.
Yeah, I was going to say, please don't do it. But if ever there was a time,
that's for the after party.
Is it okay? This is a whole other level of gal pals. Yeah, it is, Zara.
In my brain, though, seeing this particular shot, the one that I chose for this, I was imagining that, like, afterwards they became the girls in The Shining, the twins. Like,
it does have that.
Yeah, it
has
same energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's them, and it's Scatman Crothers, and it's
they are gal pals, though. That's the thing, is like whatever else is going on, like that's like a very bonded friendship. We can talk about that later. Whatever. Why they do Orson Welles like that?
The most hideous man alive. It's really funny to have done this back to back with our Joseph McBride thing, where he was directed by Orson Welles for 6 years, and he's talking to us about that experience. And the day before that, I had watched this movie, and they're like, "He's the most hideous man alive, Orson Welles."
And she like tosses it, and it basically explodes into flames when she tosses it. Like she tosses it so voraciously. Yeah. And that is an amazing scene that they see the third man in the theater.
Which is one of my favorite movies. Like,
which is so good.
Yeah.
Same here. And then like a black and white Orson Welles chases them around.
And it looks good too. It doesn't look stupid.
Exactly.
No.
I wish though that they had put dun 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 dun.
This movie was wild, but one, I love true crime, and two, I would let Kate Winslet hit me with a car. So 4 stars. It's Lex with that. Crazy lesbians run away from Orson Welles to operatic music.
They should have run away from Orson Welles to dun 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 dun.
Not gonna lie, this shit was wild.
That's basically like that's the letterbox of this whole like month of movie night extravaganza.
They're
like,
all pretty wild movies.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And neither is Gail Waters with that comment. Yes. Paul and Julie would have been crazy good dungeon masters.
Yeah.
FACTS facts. And those, of course, are the Letterboxd one-liners for Heavenly Creatures right here on Movie Night Extravaganza. Follow Movie Night Extravaganza on Letterboxd. That's Forrest over there. I, of course, am Conan Neutron. You can follow me there as well. J. Andrew Worlds also up in that Letterboxd business. And Renee Ruin is on there as well. So everybody that is on this panel, as well as many others in our extended cinematic universe, all on Letterboxd, a place for film. J. Andrew World, Let's Kill Mother. Take it away.
All right. If you're sitting here watching us on Twitch, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. If you already have an Amazon Prime account, please subscribe. That is free for you. That helps us out greatly. If you're over on the YouTubes, with the tubes and stuff, you know what to do. Hit that bell, hit that like button. Smash the stuff because it's smashing over there. You smash things.
Smash that stuff just like Paul's mom got
Yes.
Smash the tubes.
Just
Smash
put that
the
rock
tubes.
in the stocking and smash that bell.
Yes.
Anyway, spoiler alert.
Yeah, because that actually helps us out too, but also watching the video to the end on YouTube, because that lets other movie fans find our quality work here. And for those of you who also want to help us out even more, we have a Patreon, and Patreon allows you to get access to things like our after party, which we're going to have in a few minutes, and we're going to bring on more people.
And we're gonna smash at them with rocks because that's what we do on this show. Movie night rock extravaganza.
Yeah, the whole thing's really a vehicle just for smashing people over the head with rocks and stuff. That's really all it is. It's a long game, people. It's the long game.
I mean, one thing that I love about maybe not love, it's kind of traumatizing, but one thing that I like about this movie is that it's not just like they hit her with a rock and she just instantly dies. Like the death is brutal.
When she first puts it in the stocking and it's sort of hanging, I'm like, this is gonna take a while, girl.
Like, I can't wait to out of the way. Let me.
I was like, it's gonna take a while.
Well, there's kind of Kate Winslet almost gets baptized in blood because she could have just let her kill her mom and just been like, listen, she killed her mom. That bitch is crazy. But no, she kind of baptized herself. Giant
rock and just go right in there.
Yeah. So she's like, here, pass me the rock. All right, I'll do the last couple. Like,
yeah, I'll do the last bangers. Which is another. I mean, another thing that makes it really interesting, I find, is that like both the girls, the real girls, never spoke again after this. So
what are you gonna say? Hey, remember when we hit your mom with that rock?
Yeah, it was crazy.
They were put in separate prisons, and they never ever spoke again. And
that was part of the condition of the sentencing, right? Is that they could never. Well, and it's crazy, like, because if you think about it in terms of it, whether you think of it as a love story, or like a friendship for all time, or some combination of the two, that's like even more tragic.
Yeah, right? It is. Yeah, they're not allowed to, it, and I think that Juliet has
also perfectly reasonable if you're not looking at it from the perspective of a narrative structure. Like, hey man, these bitches they can't talk to each other.
They can't be friends. Yeah,
like no way. Like we saw what happened when they hang out together.
That's probably a bit of a
if you put them in the same place, they didn't just hit the the jailers with a rock like this.
Right. Well, that's why I feel like I wonder if they secretly have spoken, especially when they announced that. They said who Juliet was, what her real name was, and where she lived. And then they also released
the doxer.
There's also the internet now, and all that stuff is.
But they both live in England, and they're not that far away from each other in actual fact. So I would love to know, be a fly on the wall, and if they've ever actually conversed.
Just had a spot of tea.
Yeah, or even just spoke on the phone and we gone. Remember that was some crazy shit. Like
remember when you murdered your mom? That was wild. Anyway, but yeah, like think about it in terms of if this hadn't happened in the early 1950s, right? Like,
and
like maybe they would.
I was gonna say in New Zealand, homosexuality was a crime at this time.
Exactly. That's what I want because we somehow have gone the entire show.
Also in the United States, it was a crime at this time in every single state. in the
I wasn't even
1960s.
taken out of the DSM as a disorder until like 97 or something. Right? It was like
I think it was 1986 or something.
Oh, was it 80? Okay.
Well, in New Zealand, that is.
The disease was called homosexuality.
Yeah,
it was
because it was almost seen as worse. Like, you know, when it was, you know, like the mother, like Pauline's mother is so angry because she's like, you know, even when she sees him, sees the border and is like, you've shamed us, you know, and then you've got the rich family.
And that's kind of the crazy thing, right? It's like there's a I guess a small feminist on my shoulder, in my ear watching this that was like, oh, it's a big deal then if she sleeps with a guy in the room. And they're like, oh, you know, why can't you just be normal and not be a like the term she uses, I forget which of the many slut shaming terms that she uses, but no, but she's like, you know, yelling at her about that, and then it's like, oh well, she's gotten too close to her girlfriend. Like there's no, you know, like what are you supposed to do then? Not get close to anybody? Like she's been kind of almost traumatized by fighting with her mom. I think the mom slaps her in the fucking face when she says it back to her, like, is, you know, and then
I think a cheap little fart.
She said, because the mother ran away with the father when they were young, and she was like, I take after you.
Yeah, cheap little tart. You're right.
And the border, who is potentially one of the creepiest characters in the entire
fucking
movie.
So creepy.
Yes.
By the way, shout out Band of Strays, aka Melanie. She joined the Patreon. Want to shout that out? She became a patron. You know, anyone, like, you can definitely suggest films. You can message the Patreon. You can.
I will throw a Conan Neutron the Secret Friends branded saw blade in the air and hope it doesn't hit anything important. Not really. I'm not gonna do that.
That's what I would put on the ground. I'd be like, "Hey, mom, look at that," and then she'd lean down and be like, "Oh, Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends saw blade," and you,
bam, boom.
I remember the very first time I saw this, and when they say, treat yourself, mum, I thought, like, so cool, they're going to poison her. Best one ever. Let's not try that. Let's do it the hardest way we possibly can and put a fucking rock in a hoe, like, you know.
Where teenagers going to get poisoned?
But that's exactly that, like, shows that they're kids, though. That shows that they're, you know, they're coming from a place of emotion for it. And like they're only thinking about it in terms of, I mean, look at like the Prince character that they have that's constantly murdering everyone that they don't like, right? I mean, like it's very much just a ironically binary kind of thing that you know, they wouldn't even think of the nuance of poisoning someone. Like, you know, this isn't going to be Arsenic and Old Lace, who have, like, you know, whatever, 50 years on them.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
by the way, another movie that traumatized me as a kid, Arsenic and Old Lace. I watched that when I was, you know, pretty young.
It shows it shows that, well, the level of, you know, the juvenility of the girls, that it's they're so primitive that the fear of being taken away from each other, like, they lose control completely. And the anger involved in just the idea of that is, like,
and they're being driven by it, and they're being driven by it in a way that, like, otherwise things that maybe, like, you know, you have to imagine that the real life women, when they talk to each other later, possibly like, well, hey, you know, we could have just poisoned her. You know, there had to be like that. Maybe not. I don't know. Honestly, where is that Netflix prestige series? Go ahead, Renee.
Yeah. No, I think that the violence and the the violence was important to her in the act. Like I think that that's why. Like,
she's smashing the patriarchy, and the patriarchy as represented by her father, but also, or by her mother, but also, you know, it's the will of Dr. Hume.
It's just a it's, you know what, teenage fascination. Like, being a girl, when you're really young, you always get have one best friend, and you do become obsessed, but not normally to that level. But there is a extreme obsession when you have your first girl, like, best friend, like, scenario where, you know, another girl comes in and you want to kill that bitch. Like, what, you know, like, there's a weird thing about the territorialness, and especially when you're young and going through all your hormones and shit, it's very much.
Oh, look, it's Erica Strout, a Georgia-based filmmaker, music director, music video director, and musician. She's half of the musical duo Dream Tent, plays the guitar and sings with Motherfucker in the live band at Conan Neutron and the Secret Friend Zone.
Whoa.
That's like when the credits roll and Drive My Car an hour in, by the way.
Yeah.
That's just like that.
I was just listening a little bit as I was trying to speed home on I-20, but I-20 was kind of busy, so.
Yo, this is by the way, this movie is Christina and Ravana becoming friends, and
Yes.
Oh. Oh, you're trying to okay.
And you know, smashing Tim Pool on the head with a rock.
Wow, that's a great photo of her. Nice choice of the profile pic, Christina.
And she will be in 15 minutes. She's gonna be on the after party that we're gonna do. We're gonna hop over there.
Great.
And
she doesn't look like she'd be 75 years old.
She said I-20 represent.
Movie Night Extravaganza, brought to you by I-20.
I want to throw up a sign of some kind, but I don't think I-20 has a sign. It's a hand signal, although it should. We'll work on that. Anyway, you guys were talking about heavenly creatures, and I'm here now. And I'm so happy to be
movie
here.
that we were talking about. We've been so distracted tonight that I've just...
Where are we?
Kinda. I mean, yeah. I mean, we were, because so Erica, I'm interested in your perspective, because I brought up earlier on that as much as this is certainly a depiction of a relationship that goes beyond friendship at a time where homosexuality is quite literally outlawed. Like, I think it's also just a great movie that depicts the power of imagination between friends with have shared interest as well. But I think it would be disingenuous to not mention not only just the times, but also their relationship, which, I mean, like we mentioned the Orson Welles chasing them around part. You missed that part. But like where they okay, how can I depict it? For people that haven't seen the movie, first of all, you're missing out. But they like, hey,
definitely.
What would it be like
it's
if
pretty
these
impossible
various
to find online though? It's not streaming anywhere.
What would it be like if these various stars we liked had sex with us? I think it would look a little something like this.
You're saying that was what you were talking about, or that's what they did?
No, that's what I want to like. I kind of we were just kind of getting to that like that piece of it and like exploring the things around it. But like I mean, they had a physical relationship beyond like the fact that they had a clear, deep connection where they did a lot of running around in this movie. That's the thing I noticed most on this rewatch. Like they're running around everywhere. They're just running around.
And there's a really amazing part where she veers her bicycle off the road and then by accident,
that's so great.
To die, and she thinks she's dead, and she's like no, Paul, and then she goes, ew, you've been eating onions. And then they start dancing through the woods doing that whole thing and running to that old guy.
That old
man,
And he's like, it's super like just very stereotypical New Zealand Aussie farmer guy.
Just sitting around doing his choring, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
you guys are doing choring. You guys are doing choring over there.
Do we have like absolute? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go, Erica.
Oh, I was just going to say, do we absolutely have confirmation that they did have a physical relationship? Because
no, and that's what I was going to say. Implied. Like it's all implied. Like even in the film, the only time is that little kiss. Like they never actually.
She says that we did to each other what we imagined that each each person like imaginative character. So I kind of took that as very much they did at the very end have a physical relationship. I don't think that they did during the rest of the movie, or I don't think that's even like, but
in Pauline's diary it sounded like, at least from what I read about it, I haven't read the diary, but it sounded like she felt like maybe she was in love with that's
like the general.
Matricide's 100% legal now. That's
it is.
People don't know this.
I always forget that matricide is an actual like thing. But
so you take the tag off the mattress, right?
Yes. I mean, matricide is
no shout out to my bitch ass mom.
Yeah. But yeah, like in the, it was very much even like after the girls were caught, like it seemed as though Pauline was very likely lesbian and in love with Juliet, but in her 40s, Juliet, when she was outed as being the author, the crime author, Anne Berry, when they spoke to her about it, she said that it was not something on her side, like that she was not. But there was a fascination.
I have the clip as soon as we go to the after party. I have the clip of her talking about it.
Yeah. And it kind of sounded like Melanie Linsky as an actor was a bit like, I don't know if starstruck is quite the word, but
Probably
she was a bit
in
awe of Kate Winslet because Kate Winslet had more acting experience than her.
Yeah.
AKA some acting experience, whereas Melanie Linsky had
zero.
No
Had
acting.
zero,
Someone like this is the character, like obviously Kate Winslet as the actor, but also the character of Juliet would have been would have been like a famous person coming to town in New Zealand, like in that small village where Paul lived. That's the most exciting thing that probably happened to them in their entire
and it's kind of
life.
It's fascinating that
a very depressing place where they're from.
Canterbury seems to be the name of the college that is in that town in Christchurch, and the Archbishop of Canterbury or whatever is like the head of the. So I don't know whether it's like a direct connection that way or whether it just kind of happens to be. But in the after watching Belfast, I know that's not, they don't mention it in that, but the Archbishop of Canterbury is the head of the Church of England.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that he ends up there and they're from England, and then he also doesn't believe. They say he like works for some kind of rectory or something, and they're like, oh well, he he's like, oh, my dad says like God isn't real, and it's like, oh, all right, I thought he was gonna be like a religious theology professor or something, but I guess not. But we have to go in 10 minutes to the after party, starting with Erica. I want to hear some final thoughts. We're gonna have a full conversation there too, and I still have clips to play and everything, but yeah.
Well, I knew what it was about. I had never seen it before I watched it for this episode. And I thought it was really, really well done. I really appreciated that, like, I think part of what they did with a lot of those shots, it seemed to me anyway, my interpretation is that a lot of the shots, especially when they're sort of showing the girls' imagination and like the things they're like coming up with together and like engaging in that kind of play, and like the camera work I feel like is really interesting. Like there's like these like big zoom thing, like shots and lots of like weird close-ups, and even just like the shot where Yvonne or Pauline is being scolded by her mother, and it's like this close-up of her mom's face and she's kind of moving around while her mom's talking at her, but you can't tell what she's saying. I just thought the cinematography was really interestingly done, and I like the angle on the story too, because I think I read that Peter Jackson wanted to make sure that he wasn't like over sensationalizing the murder part, but like wanted to focus on the relationship to because it was the story was so well known in New Zealand. So I thought that was, I appreciated that too about it.
And didn't register at all here. This is our one big murder, and it's like you guys have one big murder. We've had like 12 since you started this fucking conversation. I'm getting murdered right now. And Kate Winslet and Melanie Linsky, I think, are both fantastic, even though they both are clearly like on the green side, but I think they did a great job, and always enjoy their work. So
you missed about 20 minutes of Melanie Linsky love like early on in the show.
I'll probably replay the clip of them talking about casting, or not the whole thing, but for Erica in the after party, because I do think that it's a cool clip. Like I liked watching that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Rad. Yeah, I'd love to.
Renee, you got some final thoughts?
Yeah. I guess, this film is, I think, much more than like a retelling embellishment of a true story. I felt like Peter Jackson did it turned it into like a real film and really did it justice and didn't turn it into some kind of cheap, tacky, a lot of people didn't know it was a true story in the beginning, and it only when it was marketed to other countries. So I feel like, it could have been done really badly, but like I think Conan's already mentioned, the way that Peter Jackson was able to use his amazing directing skills to build and create their imaginative world that they were involved in, because during that period when she had tuberculosis the second time, they were writing long essays to each other, which included this world. So, we needed to stay within the picture of what was happening, and they were meeting up in this world, and it made you feel like you were really there and as well, and you were a part of it. And like, it wasn't daggy, it wasn't done bad, and it really, really shows that whole journey of coming of age, and like female friendships, and that kind of strangeness of hormones, and by becoming obsessed with someone that's your friend, and the territorialness and the dedication involved. But it obviously then gets to a next level when you have someone like Pauline, who clearly is extra. So the most girls don't go that far with it, but I think that it really shows that emotion and the frustrations and all of those things really, really well. And the power, I guess, of relationship, but also, as Conan's mentioned, imagination. But like how emotion and relationships play at such a young age, and the way they can play out, and the way they can shape everything, and how something so simple can become something so incredibly tragic at the end when they're being tried to be ripped apart. Because like when we were all children, when some small thing happened, it felt like the end of the world.
Yeah.
And to them at that point in time, it was the end of the world, though, just the prospect of not being together. And I just think, it was done incredibly well. And Melanie Linsky, I can't imagine it now ever being done with anyone other than her.
Oh,
and the fact that she was 16 at the time was one of the best choices he made when casting.
Her shit face is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's got the best, amazing.
So angry.
Yeah. And used in all the most appropriate places. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. I was like, that was one of the things that delighted me about it.
Oh, she's got it down pat, like that attitude that teenage girls have, and like the.
How is there not like a gift pack of like reacts that's just like all Melanie Linsky?
Oh yeah, exactly. There should be.
I love her.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will pay whatever price is necessary for me to get that in my life.
I would love it. I would love that. Would be amazing.
And you kind of find out.
I have some emotes I have to make, don't I?
I think you might. Andy.
You kind of find out a lot about her in that second when you realize that Juliet didn't even draw her, and it's like, oh, I was gonna draw her on a rock, and you realize like this is a girl that's kind of been overlooked her entire life.
Yeah.
Which makes it way more drastic that like Kate Winslet is the first close girlfriend that she has.
You even see like at the beginning though, where she is apprehensive and kind of like, oh, this bitch.
No, I mean during that.
And then when she starts like being a bit of a rebel is when she's like, all right.
The audience is even led to believe that Juliet's going to be a very different kind of character. And you kind of get to be in on it as Pauline discovers that like, no, this chick's cool as shit. And like, now going to be my best friend. And that's awesome. Because
we just become best friends. Yep. Do you want to go build do you want to go do karate in the garage? Yep.
Also like the thing I found weird, but I don't know why, but just the bit where Juliet's like wants to touch her leg, like the thing. I'm like, that's such a weird behavior to me. Like I wouldn't like just go up to someone and be like, I know you've got this really fucked up leg. Can I like fucking touch you like to try and become their friend?
Leg all the time.
Like this is how I'm going to try and make friends with this girl. I'm just going to go on up and like pick the one thing that she's probably really insecure about, and then ask her if I can fucking touch it and look at it.
White people are always doing that to black people's hair, so
Oh, true.
Yeah, I feel like from a kid perspective, it makes more sense, but Yeah, certainly nowadays that is the opposite of the way I would attempt to make friends.
Yeah, you would.
I was gonna say though, people are doing that
like
to
the worst thing about whatever.
Yeah.
Wow, you've got no leg.
To my
What's your bump look
my
like?
really fucked up right leg all the fucking time.
Yeah.
You
But I
know?
think there's also like an acknowledgement there where she's like willing to just meet her on her level and talk about it. Like,
Yeah, because she
and not
kind of
make her-
sort of says like nothing's. It's kind of a subtle nod to like, you know, we're all imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And also that
there's
people think that like
in the
scars
imperfection.
and fucked up like maladies and disease, like
Yeah.
it's like everyone that's cool has like a fucked up like body parts,
Has bone
like,
diseases or
yeah,
like
which,
whatever,
which is
yeah.
100% true.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so I want to get through this, and then we're gonna have a whole conversation in the after party.
It's not over, folks. Sign up for the Patreon right now.
Well, we're gonna be. I mean, we're doing it publicly, and then I'm gonna put
Sign
it
up for the Patreon
Yeah.
anyway. Listen to what I said. God damn it. I'm not going to repeat myself. I'll turn this show right around.
Oh God, taking us home.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have more than just a few thoughts. But do you want to give one to kind of finish us off, or before I ask Andy, or just a quick summary of
before Andy gets into it?
No, I'm saying like I'm sure you have a lot to say right now that we haven't covered in this. So I'm saying like, do you have a wrap up thought that you feel particularly strongly about?
Are you asking me or Renee? I'm sorry.
Oh no, I said
or me.
Conan.
Oh, I
for
thought you were
Conan.
talking to Renee.
No, I said, but Conan. I know that.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know.
Conan has no
I was
thoughts to
just
share.
assuming
There's
you were
no
talking
way.
to Erica still, so I was like, yeah.
I've never had anything to say in any subject. Of
He
any
has zero thoughts on anything.
kind. No. Well, I mean, this is
Conan really fast. That's why I was like,
we'll do the playback later. So this movie, I suggested this movie, and I pushed for this movie hard because it's one of my top 20 favorite movies of all time. This movie hit me at a very deep and personal place when I saw it, which was when it came out. And I think it's, as I mentioned before, I think I think it's the one of the best depictions of imagination and a certain kind and style of friendship that can happen during adolescence, where you feel these incredibly intense things.
homosexuality.
Sometimes due to ostracization or like feeling like you're an outsider, and in other cases just finding your people. And when we're talking about the Kate Winslet, this like when we still don't know what Juliet's like. We kind of are making assumptions based on her appearance, what she might be like. Oh, she might be this snooty chick from wherever. But it's in the drawing scene that you see that, like, not only first of all, and I really want a sketch of Pauline basically being like, I want that sketch. I will put it right there, right by the guitars. But like the fact that like the teacher goes around, you're like, all right, it's gonna be like something crazy, and it's like, no, it's something entirely different that has nothing to do with the assignment. And then like that almost impresses like Pauline, and so you kind of find in that moment you see them becoming what becomes like their friendship. And there are so few movies that show that in general, let alone female to female friendship, that it's a really beautiful moment. And I found myself as moved by those moments, all the while knowing what's coming like later on as anything else. And again, as we've just hammer this point right into the ground, the whole fourth world stuff and how Peter Jackson depicts it, that's how he got Lord of the Rings, because he was able to depict something that had really articulated, fully realized visions on a budget of almost nothing, tied into things that's ostensibly a murder story, but also a story about two friends doing friend stuff together at a time where,
as some murder stories are,
as in a time where it was not okay to have that level of deep affinity to one another, which is a tragedy in and of itself. And this movie hits on like 4 or 5 different levels and does all of them really well. And I'm really glad that we covered it. I'm really glad to keep talking about it on the after show. Hit that Patreon, smash that button on the Patreon, just like her mom's head got smashed in with the rock. Let's go.
And it'll be available publicly right now, for when we're doing it. I'm going to take it off and put it on Patreon afterwards, but you can still join us for the public version of it, coming right up. and I put
So
the link.
live listeners, do the thing that he just talked about. Everyone else, don't worry about it. It's not for you.
We'll edit it later.
Andy, let's hear some quick final thoughts.
Some quick final thoughts. Honestly, like when I first saw this movie, I totally connected to the characters. Like I remember having friendships like that. Where we
just like you hit your mom on the head with a rock, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, it never quite escalated to the level, but like I remember, hanging out at one of my friends' house, and we're creating superheroes together and drawing together like they were, and kind of sharing comics, and it just gave me a lot of flashbacks to that kind of stuff. And then it escalated to murder, which I did not relate to. But yeah, I think the lesson of this movie is we can really learn that homophobia was truly the actual murderer in this film.
Yeah. All right. Well, my final thought is absolutely not. Orson Welles, the most hideous man alive.